When a storm is on the horizon, fear can rise just as fast as the wind. But we're here to help you work through the anxiety with clear, trusted guidance on how to get ready and stay safe. Featuring emergency experts and mental health professionals, our town hall, Calming the Storm, will give you the information you need to act when it matters most. Stay tuned for Calming the Storm next.
Thank you to the Eunice Joyce Gardner Charitable Foundation for its leadership support of the Health Channel.
Welcome to Calming the Storm Town Hall. I'm Michael Williams, and in this program, as the title suggests, we're going to focus on calming the storm. Not the actual storm itself, of course, but the feelings of dread and anxiety that some of us feel during storm season. Severe storms like hurricanes, tornadoes, and strong thunderstorms are natural phenomena, and feelings of anxiety or stress are common. But when should you be concerned about your anxiety, and what can you do about it? Well, we have a great panel to help answer those questions and better understand how to prepare properly for a possible storm and how to tame the fear and distress that commonly occurs when a potential natural disaster threatens us. Joining us today, Pete Suarez, spokesperson and volunteer for the American Red Cross, South Florida region, Dr. Cory Harow, director of the emergency department at West Boca Medical Center. Jeff Hines is a fire safety specialist for Palm Beach County Fire Rescue. And Dr. Angelica Berni is the director of specialty pharmacy services at Baptist Health. And Dr. Jose Calderon-Abbo is the medical director for behavioral health for UnitedHealthcare. Welcome to all of you. What a great group we have here. I'm going to start with a simple question. Pretend you have a script pad in front of you. 15 seconds each. What would you write out as we start talking about anxiety, but more importantly, about helping calm that anxiety? Peter?
I would say the first thing is to be prepared. Preparedness. And in so doing, to gain knowledge. Find out because what's going to happen, because knowledge is power, and it'll help you get where you want to go.
Dr. Harow?
So along the same lines, to have a plan personalized to your needs. There's a sense of increased anxiety when you don't have what you need, and then you can't have access to it during a storm. So it's the kind of thing where if you plan ahead and you order what you need, then it significantly decreases the level of anxiety.
Sounds so simple, but so vitally important. Jeff?
Right. Hurricane season started today, June 1st. So now is the time to put the plan together, not when a storm is named, not when a storm is coming, but now. So to the doctor's point, everybody has their own individual kind of plans, but come up with that now.
Dr. Berni, weigh in. 15-second, your script that you'd write out right now to calm everyone.
Yeah, there's been really great advice so far. I would say definitely to take a breath and start simple, take advantage of time. As a pharmacist, I'm going to tell you to take, check of your medications in advance and just use time on your side.
And Dr. Calderon-Abbo, let's see if we can make it 5 for 5. I suspect there'll be something about preparation and what you'd like to say as well, sir.
Yes, don't forget to breathe through the entire preparation. That's what I would say to my patients.
Great advice, and we're going to have a chance for you at home to talk much more about simple advice like that. Breathe, be with family, relax as best you can, have loved ones gathered around. So Dr. Calderon, great advice from all of you about prep. I would ask, we'd start with you, Dr. Harow. Hurricane season, it is something where people, you dread its approach, or some do, say, oh my gosh, it's here again. Everybody says, here's June 1st until November 30th, they're on pins and needles. Why does the anxiety start for so many, even before the storm is on the radar?
There's a couple of reasons why. There is something called anticipatory anxiety, meaning something that's coming towards you that you know it's on its way, and it builds, especially if you're watching the Weather Channel and if you're constantly checking on storms. It's the kind of thing which then increases that sense of dread. There's also a sense of the burden associated with preparation. Ordering medications, ordering batteries, water. But it can be even more expensive getting a generator. That's the kind of thing, that financial burden and logistical burden of waiting in lines can really, really increase anxiety.
This is why for you at home watching and listening, the preparation so that you're not rushed doing that is so important. And here are some well-studied ways, by the way, that we're going to talk about a lot to help you prepare for the storm with our guests. Take care of yourself. You heard about breathing from Dr. Calderon. Sounds simple, so important. Eat healthy. Exercise, reach out to family and friends, limit your news consumption. And from an old news guy like me, it sounds funny, but I used to tell my family, don't watch 24/7. Get the news you need, but don't make it something where you're obsessing about it. Maintain routine with regular sleep and meal schedules as well. And Pete, we're used to watching storm tracks and the like, but I think that's wonderful advice. Watch, be in the know, but don't become obsessed about it.
Well, that's the problem. But basically, when you become, anybody can obsess about anything at any time, but basically knowing ahead of time, we have NOAA with the hurricane watch on the hurricane warnings, and the people get very anxious about that generally, and the way to do it, or the way to minimize the anxiety, I think it's just kind of relax and make it a family affair. Everybody watch it together.
Watch out for one another. Dr. Calderon, what are some of the signs and symptoms of disaster distress that might well appear before the storm even hits?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at the risk of oversimplifying, there are two forms: symptoms from the neck up, that are the psychological symptoms, and symptoms from the neck down, that are physical symptoms. The psychologically excessive worrying, not only about the storm, but about any of the things in our lives that is excessive. Irritability, edginess, restlessness, broken sleep, vivid dreams or memories, or avoidance. We minimize the risk, we procrastinate, we do nothing to prepare in time for the season. We want to check out with screens or TV or phones or drinking or drugs. And from the neck down, stress increases the hormone cortisol, which elevates our blood sugar levels or blood pressure levels, which is very important for people that suffer from diabetes or hypertension, that they start feeling not well controlled.
A follow-up, you worked on the ground, Dr. Calderon, during Hurricane Katrina. How does that experience shape your perspective on what people may well feel today?
Well, what has changed is that unfortunately many of us all across the country and the world have had a fair share of natural disasters and first-hand experience from this, right? And what we've learned is that preparation is at the core, and it is a local event with state and federal supports. Everyone plays a role. Think of concentric circles from your home to your neighbors, your neighborhood, your first responders, local hospital, doctor's office, pharmacies, grocery stores, your insurance and utility companies, all the way to your town and your state. So everyone preparing benefits everybody. And the second thing that we learn is that with proper preparation, the majority of the people will do well. We are very resilient people.
That's a wonderful point you bring up, and that preparation where we know it's not just our family, it's not just me, it's not just you at home, it's all of us with the kind of experts we have here today. So you have a big security blanket there, and that's one way to stay calm, to be mindful of that. Dr. Berni, some people might become anxious about having enough of their prescription medications if a hurricane hits. I had an elderly loved one who lived with us, my mother-in-law, into her 90s. My wife and I would always say we've got to be prepared early, but again, there's that key. Be prepared. But what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I hear this often, and it's completely understandable, because the last thing you really want during a hurricane is to worry about running out of something that you really depend on, especially for a loved one, like you mentioned. So first off, being anxious is normal. The benefit is with a hurricane is that we usually know in advance that they're coming. So the thing is to work in advance and work and plan ahead, right? So if a hurricane is approaching, normally what I say is contact your pharmacy and try to request a refill of your medication, because key is to have at least about 2 weeks on hand or so of your medication. So anything that's essential that you take on a regular basis. Most insurances also allow you to have these refills in advance when they actually declare a state of emergency. So pharmacists can help you navigate through that and making sure that you know what to do.
Dr. Berni?
Another thing too I can think of. Oh, yes.
Go ahead, please.
I was going to say too is making sure that you keep your medications, like preparing in advance and having them in a waterproof container, making sure you have a list of your medications, doing just as what we've been talking about, doing things in advance and preparing so that you feel a little bit less anxious when the time comes for a hurricane.
Sounds so basic, sounds so simple, but so vitally important. That word preparation that can do so much to reduce your anxiety, to help you be calm and your loved ones. There are support groups and helplines, by the way, for people suffering from disaster distress, and I want to give you two of them. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration has a helpline you can call or text, and the number you see it right there, 1-800-985-5990. It is a free crisis counseling service for those experiencing distress related to natural or human-caused disasters. And Facebook has a National Disaster Survivor online peer support group. You can join it to speak with other people who've gone through or are going through a natural disaster. Now that link is facebook.com/groups/natural disaster support. Dr. Harow, if a family member notices a loved one having anxiety, what is it they can do and step in right away to do to help?
You definitely want to approach that giving reassurance and validation to your family member or your friend. It's important for them to understand that that things are going to be okay. You can say things like, I'm here for you. You're not alone. You want to reassure them, but you also want to make sure they understand that it's okay to be nervous. It's okay to have stress or anxiety associated with a natural disaster.
You said something to me before air, though, that you think is vitally important, and that is don't play doctor, though. Don't assume that if they're saying there's physical symptoms going with that, don't try and self-diagnose. Call before the storm, plan, prepare, make those phone calls. Don't assume that a physically related symptom to anxiety is nothing to worry about. It's just anxiety. You thought that was very important.
No, 100%, because unfortunately the symptoms of an anxiety attack can actually mimic the symptoms of a heart attack or a stroke. You can have numbness or weakness. You can have chest pain, shortness of breath, sweating. Those are things where in a healthy 18-year-old might simply be anxiety, but in someone with underlying medical problems, even in their early the 30s or 40s, it might be a life-threatening condition.
Call for that help ahead of time. If you know somebody whose anxiety is spilling into physical symptoms, again, ahead of time, so vital. And of course, it's not only adults that can feel distressed by a coming storm. Children, we raised 3 of them, my wife and I, many of you have, parents, grandparents, all of you can relate to this. Dr. Calderon, how can a parent tell if their child's feeling anxiety, and what can we do to help?
Yes, irritability. They may have more frequent temper tantrums, separation anxiety, clinginess, or excessive fears, things that they already conquered, like fear of darkness now returns again. Or they may have an episode of bedwetting where they already were controlling overnight. They may withdraw from playing, or they withdraw from interesting activities that they were doing, right? Or they may have, as Dr. Harow has mentioned, even children may have stomach aches or headaches that begin to appear. Adolescents are moody, more irritable. They may become isolated and withdrawal. They may decline school performance or in activities as well, or begin to take some risks.
Dr. Calderon,
like trying drugs or...
Those are symptoms that we're hearing that, of course, for any parent, you go, oh my gosh, our grandparent, loved one, caretaker, guardian.
Yeah.
What are the basic things we can do to help the children through that?
Yeah, that's a great point. So I think it's what it's important here is that people need explanations. Our kids, children, and adolescents need explanations. So first, talk to them at their level, right? For young kids, also it's important to keep them engaged. There are fun games that they can play while preparing, as Mr. Suarez mentioned, while preparing for a disaster, right? Like there's a U.S.-sponsored disaster master game, or Prepare with Pedro also, or building a superhero disaster kit. So those are fun ways of keeping them engaged in the whole process.
Dr. Calderon.
Adolescents also, like him, want to be helpful, and so involve them in tasks and give them responsibilities proper to their level.
Wonderful advice, Dr. Calderon. And in addition to being a wonderful behavioral specialist, you are a mind reader, because we're now moving on to the fact that the Red Cross has a series of activity books and videos called Preparing with Pedro that can help teach children how to not be afraid or anxious about storms. Here's one of those videos.
Prepare for hurricanes. Knock, knock, who's there? I'm a hurricane. These are my friends, wind and rain. We all met up in the ocean blue. Now we're coming to land to cause some trouble for you. We make it flood, shut off power. We can push down trees and knock over towers. How do I stay safe around this crew? Your TV, phone, or radio will tell you. TV, phone, or radio. Hurricane's near, that's how you'll know. TV, phone, or radio. They'll tell you to stay, they'll tell you to go. TV, phone, or radio. If a hurricane's near, that's how you'll know. TV, phone, or radio. They'll tell you to stay or tell you to go. Well, that's convenient.
That is wonderful. Pete, tell us a little bit more about how you all, with videos like that, can help us prepare our children.
Well, I'll tell you, that video in particular kind of hit home, because it reminded me, in preparing to do this program today, it reminded me of when I was 4 years old on the first hurricane my first experience that I was on my mom's lap on a rocking chair.
Wow.
And she was humming, and she was being affectionate, and she was being reassuring, and she was saying just the right things. I knew that she was taking care of herself to take care of me, but the things that she was doing. But going back to what I said earlier about preparing, and the Red Cross, we have educational programs. This is one of them, Prepare with Pedro, having to do not only with hurricanes, but a host of other weather-related events.
And so look up Red Cross wherever you live and are listening to this. Those kind of resources are available. And that's a beautiful story you told, by the way.
Redcross.org.
All right.
Okay, you go there and you find everything.
So as we segue out of that, what steps can you take that will help you be prepared for a hurricane? A good place starts with involving and getting your home ready, inside and out, to weather the storm. Jeff, what preparations do people, let's start with the outside first. What are the things you typically see and say, here's the things you need to remember as you're prepping the outside of your home?
Right. So now is the time to start looking at plants, chairs, outdoor furniture,
Emphasis
umbrellas.
on now.
Yeah, now. See what you got and see where you can put it. Some people are fortunate they have a garage they can put it. Some people have other areas where they may be able to put it. But at the same time, you may have to bring it into your living room, because what can happen is those can become projectiles, meaning that they can cause damage to your house, your neighbor's house, vehicles, different things that are out and about. Second thing is the shutters, right? So a lot of people have hurricane windows now. If you need shutters, or if you have shutters, now is the time to figure out, do you have all the hardware for them? If you need somebody to help you put those up, do you have a company that's coming, family, friends? How are you going to do that?
Jeff, what about electric cars? We're seeing more of them. And what particular issues do I need to think about? Number one, obviously the power going out, but also fire risk there as well?
Right. So with the electric cars, it's kind of jumping all over, but if you're planning on evacuating, you need to make sure your car's charged before you go, is number one. If you're staying and you have your electrical car, make sure it's not plugged in when the storm comes through. The water and the batteries can create fires. If you're in a storm surge area or a flood zone, it's definitely important to try to get your car out and make sure that it's not inside the garage.
But all this theme for those with us for the entire broadcast and those join us, preparation, preparation, preparation. Inside your home, one of the first things you can do is put together a home emergency kit. Here's a look at what you should include.
Disasters can strike at any time. You may need to survive on your own for several days. Preparing an emergency survival kit with your own food, water, and other supplies can keep you and loved ones safe until help arrives. To assemble your kit, put your entire disaster supplies kit in 1 or 2 easy-to-carry containers, such as plastic bins or a duffel bag. Here are the must-have items. Water. Make sure you have at least 1 gallon per person per day, both for drinking and for sanitation. The more water you can fit into your bin, the better. Food. Choose non-perishable food, something that can be eaten right out of the can, like vegetables, pasta, or chili. Don't forget a manual can opener. Flashlight. Make sure you have extra batteries.
This has been No Weather Radio, all hazard.
A weather radio. A hand-cranked radio is best, but if it takes batteries, make sure you have a fresh set. There are even some radios that have flashlights and USB ports for charging devices such as cell phones. A fully stocked first aid kit. Check expiration dates each year and replace anything that is expired or soon will be. Be sure not to forget about your pets and your little ones. Remember to include diapers, infant formula, medicine, bottles, and any other necessary essentials for your children. For pets, keep extra food, collapsible bowls, and medicine with your kit. And speaking of medicine, keep several days' worth of any prescriptions and over-the-counter medications in your kit for all members of your household. Once you've assembled your kit, be sure to store it in a cool, dry place like your kitchen pantry that's easily accessible to all members of the household. Check your kit every few months to ensure expired items are replaced and that the kit is updated to meet any new household needs. After assembling and storing your home emergency kit, consider assembling one for your workplace and your car. You never know where you'll be when a disaster hits, so you need to be prepared no matter where you might be. For a complete list of items and ideas about how to build your kit, visit ready.gov/kit.
Now, I'd like to repeat those items because it is such a vital part of being prepared. The items you should include: water enough for each person in your home for 3 days, cans of non-perishable food, can opener, flashlight, extra batteries, a battery-operated weather radio, first aid kit, enough food for children and pets, and prescription and over-the-counter medicines. And Jeff, I've had people say to me over the years, oh, I think I'll include some candles too.
Right. So from the fire department standpoint, yeah, we don't want open flames. Flashlights, battery-operated lanterns are the better alternative.
Sounds silly, but people get frantic, and maybe they haven't prepared, which is why we're doing this broadcast, doing this program. But those are the kind of things that could lead to big trouble. So do the appropriate things, but again, obviously, but it's sometimes not so obvious, in fairness, when you're tired and you need light, but no candles. Don't give yourself problems. It could become a fire hazard.
Exactly.
Great advice. Pete, the Red Cross suggests people also have a Go kit, sort of a different variation on what we just talked about. And we'll get to later in the broadcast about do I stay or do I go, but you should have a Go kit ready at the start of season.
Well, the Go kit is always good for any kind of disaster, any kind of problem. The Go kit is a smaller version of what you just heard. Basically, the water, the flashlight, the thing. I saw a couple of things. I thought of a couple of things there. Leatherman's tool as an all-purpose tool.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to have. Work gloves are also a good thing to have. Maybe a change of clothes, some handy wipes.
A little extra cash, Pete?
Oh yes, definitely, because who knows? The power, how long may the power be out? And maybe you have power, but the business that you want to do, they can't. The credit card doesn't work. The debit card doesn't work. So having a little bit of cash, it's a good idea.
Great jumping off point to Dr. Berni. I'd like to talk to you a bit more about prescription drugs that need to be in both kits. And if someone's worried, and many are, that they're going to run out during or after a storm, what can they do? And especially those who say, well, it's not my time to refill yet, and yet they want to be ready ahead of time. What do you say to them?
Yeah, the best thing to do really is going to be to act early. Let's take advantage, at least in a hurricane, when we know that it's generally coming, we can work with our pharmacies to ensure that we get those refills in advance. Once a state of emergency is declared, usually insurance companies and pharmacies relax a little bit those refill limits, and you're able to get early refills of your medication. Also making sure that in your kits, if you have inhalers or some of these other medications, even over the counters, that you're checking the expiration date. So if it's something you're keeping in there for a period of time, it's your Go kit, or you're prepping in advance for a hurricane, making sure you have enough on hand. We always say at least 2 weeks is going to be key to make sure that you're successful for the storm and even after the storm.
Dr. Berni, thank you. Dr. Harow, we can't emphasize it enough. Talk about over-the-counter drugs again. And we want to say it, repeat it again. That should be there. I'm thinking about people who perhaps have allergic reactions to things, but talk a little bit more about, from your point of view, what you'd like to see in that kit from an over-the-counter perspective to make sure you bring along.
Certainly. I think that if I had to choose, I need 6 meds, over-the-counter drugs for my complete Go kit. I want aspirin, which is the first medication that you take for a heart attack or a stroke, and there are some strokes after $1 million workup. That's the only medicine that people leave the hospital on. Motrin, Tylenol, those are going to help with headaches. They're going to help with aches, pains, and there's some injuries associated with storm debris, or afterwards when you're trying to clear debris. Antibiotic ointment also in terms of caring for wounds. Some hydrocortisone cream in case you're touching foliage or branches and you end up with a reaction. And my last one would be Benadryl, which would be an antihistamine. It's used for allergies, but also it has a little fringe benefit of helping with anxiety, and it's a sleep aid.
Wow, fantastic. So just a great Go kit with a broad spectrum of help there. What about people who need oxygen, have equipment, need oxygen, a CPAP machine, things like that? What do you say to them about those kind of needs, and especially if power is going to be out for a while? What's your best advice there?
That kind of dovetails with my initial comments that you really need to prepare ahead of time, because if you have medication, you have medical devices that you are dependent on, those oftentimes have batteries. So you've got to power those up and charge them full capacity. That's going to get you for a couple of days, but if there's a prolonged loss of power, now you have to deal with, do you have a generator? Do you have a friend with a generator? And at the end of the day, the emergency department is that safety net. We're able to handle and to care for patients who are dependent on medical devices and have no power. Because
some medicines need refrigeration, for instance. You hope you have your ice chest, but you've got to get as prepared as you can. And we should mention that too. To the degree you can get an ice chest, it's going to melt eventually, but at least have it ready. I know my wife and I'd make sure we'd fill up several of them. As we move on, Jeff, and we talk about different things, and again, we kind of chuckled, but it was a serious point, because I've been there. I've been there with family, and I've seen it as a reporter. People get frantic. They don't think about what we would say is obvious. Fire extinguishers. Hopefully every home has one. You need to know how to use them as well. Talk a little bit about that. So important at this time.
Correct, yeah. So people have them different shapes and sizes. They come in different types of fires that they extinguish. A, B, and C is the most common type. So number one, it would be make sure you know what type of extinguisher you have. Number two, make sure it's accessible. Sometimes people put them underneath the kitchen sink, and then they put all kinds of supplies and pet food in bags, and it gets pushed all the way to the back. So make sure that it's accessible. On them, they have usually a yellow arrow and a gauge, and it says if the yellow arrow is in the green that it's good. However, what can happen is the powder inside there can solidify, so you can tip it upside down, kind of feel like an hourglass. You should feel weight distribution. If you don't feel that and your extinguisher is really, really old, it's better to just get rid of it and go get another one. And of course, make sure now, again, is the time to make sure that you have working smoke alarms inside your house. Now is the time to test them. Now is the time, if you haven't changed the batteries, change the batteries now, and also make sure that you have a carbon monoxide detector. Even if you don't have any sources of carbon monoxide, if a hurricane comes and your neighbor has a generator and they put a generator close by your house, those fumes can come inside your house. So get make sure your smoke alarms are all working, have a carbon monoxide alarm as well.
We've talked about what to have in your home. Now a part of the program that is so vital and near and dear to me. I saw this for decades as a reporter, people frantic about the go, no-go decision. So your home's ready. You've hurricane-proof as much as you can. You might think you're done, but there are a few more things you need to consider. And Dr. Harow, emergency shelter. Now, you're in ER, but sometimes people will come to the ER for emergency shelter. And when is that, obviously, if they have a physical injury, but what do you see there? And talk about the appropriateness of that, where people are saying, I've got to go somewhere.
We are open 24/7, and that's the kind of thing that we are proud of the fact that we function as a safety net for our communities, for whatever they need. It might be chest pain, it might be that they have no water at home, and certainly preparation is going to be far and away the better plan. But at the end of the day, we are there for our communities.
Jeff, I want to just come back to you quickly. This is so vitally important. Normally it's said, hide from the wind, run from the water. Wherever you are listening to this broadcast, listening, watching, you have to check with your city, with your municipality, know whether you live in an evacuation zone, whether you live in an area where there's storm surge, and please, please listen to authorities. We see this again and again and again. Please emphasize that.
Right, so correct. If you're in an evacuation zone, you should evacuate.
And you can look it up online.
You can look it up online. If you're in that evacuation zone, now is the time to prepare to figure out, are you going to leave town? Are you going to go to a friend's house? Are you going to go to a shelter? Where exactly are you going to go and what you're going to do? If you do stick behind and you do start to take on water, you got to get to higher areas. But what can happen and what's happened in the past is people end up in attics. They get trapped in attics. Try not to go in your attic. If you go in the attic, you need to bring something that can cut through the roof. But at the end of the day, if you're in that evacuation zone, find out now, prepare, do not stay in your house.
We saw it in Ian, for instance, in Florida some years ago. The storm surge, just horrific. Dr. Berni, what questions should someone ask a shelter? You've made the decision, I'm going, about concerning medications and equipment.
Yeah, and I love this question because we want to be able to ask in advance, right? And we're going back to making sure we have time to think these things through. So first thing I would ask is, how are you able to store your medications? So check with them and ask, are we able to bring our own medications? Are they going to stay with me in my possession? Some people are on refrigerated medication. So we need to check what options do the shelters have there. So asking in advance is going to be key, because we talked a little bit about those chests and making sure we have ice if we're on those refrigerated medications. So having a plan. Sometimes if you have pets too, making sure to ask, do they allow them if they're on any medications, making sure that they can accommodate as well. And I think just making sure you just ask things in advance, write them down so that you're prepared when you get there and you know exactly what to expect, and have your medications ready and easily accessible. If you're on any type of equipment, how is the backup generators, or what batteries you might need to bring. A couple things we've already talked about today.
We're going to talk a lot more about pets in a moment. So many of us have them. Dr. Calderon, first though, talk about what parents should pack in terms of toys or games, something for the children in those evacuation packs, and what do you think can be helpful? Because that is a big challenge to try and keep your child calm. Now you're moving out of a familiar setting, you're heading to a shelter. Talk about that, please.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so the favorite toys that are small and easy to carry, that are not electric, right? Familiar stuffed animals, action figures, they provide a sense of connection. And also bring something, small toys that can keep them active, like with tossing, throwing, or jumping, right, that you can do with it. Soft blankets that are comfortable and comfy for them. Books with their beloved stories, their favorite stories that we read to them, and art supplies, right? You want crayons, coloring books to keep them creative and keep their minds engaged.
Dr. Calderon, thank you. Jeff, not all shelters. We want to talk about pets now because many people, we're included, the pets are going with us. Not all shelters take pets. Broadly speaking, for our audience, how do you make sure you're checking to find out which do, which don't?
So now's the time to get online and to look. And I actually looked today, and in Palm Beach County, it's West Boynton Recreation Center, and they only take pets. If the adults or the humans need to shelter as well, they would go to Park Vista High School, but West Boynton Recreation Center only takes the pets.
You're talking South Florida locations, but wherever somebody may be listening and watching this program, check with your local authorities. They'll be able to give you that kind of information. We know the pets are a huge part of that. Pete, talk about the items people will bring with their pets, or what they should be bringing if they're going to bring pets, and how to make sure. You all run the shelters, by the way. Red Cross runs them. They're
correct.
Opened by the locality. But what do you see, and what should people be bringing for that pet?
Well, we accept pets in our shelter, especially service animals. Service animals will not be turned away.
Typically, can somebody find out if they're accepted where you all are running shelters through redcross.org?
Whichever Red Cross shelter, wherever the Red Cross shelter is, we will accept service animals, and we will also accept pets.
And what do people bring along, or should bring along?
People should bring along, like the water bowl, some food, a toy, medications, whatever. You have to think of the pet like a small child. Whatever you bring for your small child, you bring for your pet.
That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah. It really is. And so that's vitally important in a shelter, is to make sure you've thought ahead. I know it sounds like, but the repetition's so important. Everything we're talking about, if you prepare now, when all of us can be calm, it
We've
makes all
talked
the
about
difference.
the GO kit, but there are some instances in which the stay is going to be a little longer. You got to think of a bedding, got to think of a carrying cage, you got to think of few more days, maybe a suitcase, a small suitcase.
For you and your needs for the pet as well. Dr. Berni, what about pet medications that may need to be kept cold? Will shelters generally allow that? What do you say to people say, I've got to bring all that along too? What's your best advice?
Yeah. Pet medications, like you said, pets, they're coming with you, right? They're going to come with me if I'm going to a shelter.
Yeah.
So really, a lot of pets are on maybe insulin or some type of liquid medication, and they may actually need to be refrigerated. So I think one thing that you really need to think about is making sure that you have a cooler with you if the shelter is not able to accommodate that. Making sure you have ice packs, that's going to be a great first step. Making sure you keep medications safe at the right temperature as long as possible. And the big thing is, we hear this a lot, is they want to freeze medication. So if you have a pet that, let's say, is on an insulin and you're worried it's going to get out of temperature range, they try to freeze it. And we always advise that's not the best practice, best scenario, because actually freezing something can actually damage the product. So it's better to just keep it as cool as possible and then work with your pharmacist, contact them afterwards, or your provider, veterinarian, if the medication does seem to go out of range, so you can understand how long something can be out of range and still be effective for your animal.
Great advice.
So a lot of prep now means call pets.
Amen. And I remember when one time my wife, I was getting her packed. I said, I don't know if there's enough room for all this. She said, well, you can walk, but the pets are going with me. So she was half kidding. If you can't find a shelter that will allow you to bring your pets, some vets, by the way, do have hurricane-proof or hardened offices where you can board your pets. So check with your vet. That's such a vital thing to do. Make sure you have all their shots and vaccines up to date, by the way. That's very important. So we have our kits set up. Where to go in case we have to evacuate. Please listen to those orders. Please know, please look all of that up. Now we find out that the storm is in fact heading our way. Dr. Calderon, if someone experiences panic during a storm, it's upon us now, what should loved ones do? What can they do in that moment to at least help that loved one who's experiencing that feel safe and grounded?
Yeah, I would also mention what Dr. Harow already was mentioning, reminding that it's safe, that it's a panic attack, that it will pass. Ask them what they need, right? So ask permission, right? Some people may want a hug, some people may want to hold their hands. Ask permission if it is appropriate to. And also stay in control yourself, because you're going to model how people need to be breathing as you're breathing with them so they can settle down and calm down. And to ground them, help them pay attention through their senses to things that are around. What are the things they're feeling, they're touching, they're smelling? That helps them ground themselves. And when everything fails, I often try this with patients and with loved ones. We shake the anxiety, literally shake the anxiety vigorously, and that helps too.
Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Harow, your thoughts on this?
I don't have much to add to that. That actually was excellent in terms of how we manage anxiety in patients. I would just add a little bit that that you definitely want to make sure that you're projecting calm. That people, when they're anxious, they'll tend to speak quickly and loudly. It's really it's super important to not match their cadence, not match their volume, but to just project calm. And also with the grounding that we were just hearing about, the idea is to give some cognitive work to the person to kind of redirect their racing thoughts. Mm-hmm. So, for example, look around the room and name me 5 things that start with the letter C. You know, it's the kind of thing that all of a sudden now their brain goes away from those racing hamster wheel thoughts, and now they have a task, and the task might take them a little time. And now that along with calm and breathing, hopefully you can avoid a full-blown panic attack.
Jeff, suppose someone decides that they want to get out of the storm's path before it hits. I want to go back to this for a moment because it's very, very important. You touched on it, but it's important to repeat it. When's it too late to make that decision?
It's preparation again. You know, with the storms, it's always interesting because the numbers change as far as how big or small it's going to be, where it's going to go, you know, if it's going to go, and then people wait. And then when they wait till the last minute, you run into traffic jams, gasoline problems. So if you're going to go, here again, get that plan now. And if the storm's name and it's projected to come towards you, just go.
And I had a neighbor, it was during Irma 2017, waited till the last moment. We told them, please do not get in the car. The storm could shift. They were scared. They left at that time the Miami area, ended up going, and as you all know, the storm shifted. They got caught in it. Thank goodness they were okay. But you have to make the decisions, prepare early on. Dr. Harow, the storm's hit. My family's having a medical emergency, and I'm in the middle of a storm. What do I do?
The initial response should be 911, because what you have is that if the storm is not yet severe enough, you can get a response. In our county, the response is under 7 minutes. In other counties, it may not be as incredible as it is here, but even if they can't respond physically because of winds over 40 miles an hour, you still have a dispatcher who can talk you through basic airway management, CPR, how to administer an EpiPen, things that most people who are non-medical might be uncomfortable or ignorant of, but you've got someone who can talk you through it and help you discern whether this is something which actually is an emergency.
I appreciate it. I want to turn to something else that all of us talked about a lot. Remember earlier, you at home, when I said, generally speaking, if you're somewhere where it's a good structure, hide from wind, run from water, because besides the wind, hurricanes can and often cause catastrophic flooding. And while it's best not to leave your home, you must be aware of the dangers of driving through standing water, even later on, perhaps well after the storm. Look at this video.
You're running late, and your path is blocked by water crossing the road. It doesn't look that deep, so you decide to drive through it. Bad decision, and it may be your last.
Turn around, don't drown. Jeff, people do not think a small amount of water can matter, but even a foot of water, you can get stuck in that. You can be swept away if you're on your feet by that. In a car, just in a couple of feet of water, I've covered, and my colleagues, way too many stories about that. Nonetheless, if somebody gets into a situation, suddenly they've driven into water, stuck, what can you say to them about any life-saving steps they can take should that horrid eventuality happen?
Right, so if they end up going into a bigger body of water where the car is going to be submerged, they need to try to get out, right? So they have the tools that break the glass.
Have your talk about that. A lot of people don't.
Right.
You're talking about the punch
tool. The punches, yeah. So it's not going to work on your front windshield. It'll work on most likely the side windshields. But at the end of the day, if you're going into a bigger body of water, try to get the door open. Try to get the window down. If neither of those can happen and the car's submerged, try to stay calm. The car's going to fill with water, but once the car fills with water, the pressure will relieve, and you should be able to open your door at that point in time. So before it's too late or the last second, you take a deep breath, wait for the car to be fully submerged, and then try to open the door. But the punch tools are great. And
listening to you say that, it's almost impossible to imagine being calm. Dr. Calderon, for that and other really life or death situations, which hopefully never happen with proper preparation, they shouldn't. But what do you say about how you try and keep your wits about you to get out of that potentially life-threatening situation at that moment?
Yeah, you mentioned it correct. You stated very well. It's not about staying calm. This is a life-threatening situation, but we want to stay collected and keep our heads on our shoulder through this. So that means that to the extent that we can, we're breathing and we're focusing on the very next step that we need to take, one thing at a time, towards safety.
Dr. Calderon, the storm's passed, and we want to talk about this a lot. But some people, and we want to talk about the mental, emotional, psychological part first, some people still feel that disaster distress you talked about at the top of this program. Talk to them about tips you have for how they can overcome it.
After the storm passes, there's a mix of feelings and emotions, right? From gratitude and relief and elation and excitement, feeling high that things are doing okay. But also we are pressed to get things going, right? And and the recovery can't come fast enough. And there's a significant list of things and many things that we lost, and we maybe begin to read about some of this. So there's a mixed emotion. So it's important to set limits and be very clear when we're on and when we're off, so we don't overdo it and get ourselves injured, hurt, tired mentally or otherwise, right? We have a list of pressing needs that need to happen, and but also break this down. So we take care of a few things, take breaks, take care of others, also helps take care of ourselves too. And there are many things that are out of our control, the insurance claim, the utilities coming back, all of these things. So let's not get stuck with those and shift the attention also to things that we can control and can take care of. So it's a mix of doing both at a time.
Dr. Calderon, thank you, and it's important, and I know that Dr. Harow and Jeff, you talked earlier, and we're going to talk about what happens after the storm, because so often your ER sees stories that did not have to happen. But first, Pete, let's stick with how do we help people through that psychological part of it as they're beginning to try and recover emotionally after the storm. As Dr. Calderon said, that is a tough path, and how can the Red Cross help there?
Well, at the shelters, we have staff, volunteers that actually take care of that. We have mental health counselors, we have spiritual counselors, we have nurses. If there is an emergency, usually at the shelter, there is a fire rescue present. And the way to help them is to just mostly listen to them. And as a good doctor was saying, maybe change their minds a little bit by the task, provide some sort of exercise, a game that will allow the person to refocus out of their present immediate situation.
And Dr. Berni, after Hurricane, Pete, thank you as always. After a hurricane, what should people do immediately about their medication and equipment? What's your best advice?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think right after hurricane, one of the first things we need to do is check medications and check our equipment, making sure that everything stayed dried, everything was intact, it was always at the right temperature, especially for those refrigerated medications. Rule of thumb, if anything looks questionable, please don't play any guessing games. Please call your doctor or pharmacist if you're ever unsure. They can help coach and guide you through if you're not sure if your medication or equipment is still safe to take or use. Bottom line, when in doubt, just check it out, double check with a resource. A quick call can save you a lot of trouble.
All right, and now, Dr. Berni, thank you. The storm's passed. You've finally gotten the all clear to go outside. Leave the shelter if you evacuated, but there are still some things that we do need to be aware of. Drive only if absolutely necessary. Emergency responders need to be able to get where they're going quickly, and the fewer of us on the road, the better for them. Avoid those flooded roads. Watch for downed electrical wires and fallen objects. Walk around outside. Do not go near anything that looks like a downed power line. Assume they're live all the time. Check for downed power lines, loose power lines, structural damage. Don't stay in your home if it was damaged. If your power's out and you have a portable generator, please review safety guidelines. Use only battery-operated flashlights and lanterns, and never use candles. And Jeff and Dr. Harow, you both were so passionate about this with me before we went on air. After a storm is when we would normally report on the most people being hurt. A generator that was in an enclosed space, carbon monoxide poisoning. Stepping on a downed line, they thought it was not live, they end up losing their life. Flooded waters. I want you both to talk about the things you see and really drive this point home after the storm. Dr. Harow, let's begin with you. You said something to me earlier about what you see in ER, including people getting up on ladders after who come in with what kind of injuries?
We do. We tend to see a significant increase in trauma and injuries after a storm. There's debris. There are pieces of wood and nails and broken things that people step on. But then we also have some elderly patients who, because they lack social support or because they're just gung-ho about taking down their storm shutters, they'll climb up on a ladder in their 80s to try to take down storm.
No.
And so we've had some horrific fractures, injuries that you'd expect from a motorcycle collision. But when you have a certain amount of trauma that happens to an 80-year-old, the events are horrific.
Things that did not have to happen. Right. If they're just mindful. And we understand that people, that they're stir crazy and they have no help. But please, if you're listening or watching this, for you or for an elderly loved one, that's the worst thing you can do. Jeff, talk about some of the dangers we mentioned on the graphic that we put up, because I know this is near and dear to your professional heart.
Right, so the number one cause of house fires is unattended cooking. So what can happen in a hurricane is storms coming, people panic, they have food in the refrigerator, they want to start cooking it, they start cooking it, power goes out, they forget to shut off the stove or the burner. Power comes on middle of the night, fire potentially happens, which here again is why you need to make sure your smoke alarm works. So with that in mind, the shutters, yes, after the storm passed, it's recommended to get those shutters off, because now you've barricaded yourself in your house. You no longer have two exits out. You most likely just have a door. You don't have a window at that point. And then the generators need to be 20 feet away from a structure, right? That could be a window, that could be a garage, and that's not closer to your neighbor's house.
And not in a garage. Oh, my garage door was open. Away from the structure.
Away from the structure.
And by the way, so we don't confuse our people viewing, listening, shutters down, but not in a situation where it's going to be a danger for you.
Correct.
Be prudent.
Yep,
okay.
Correct. And then back to when I was originally saying, if shutters are an issue as far as getting them up, now is the time to find a company, a neighbor, a friend, somebody that's going to help you with that. So generators 20 feet away, and also 5 gallon jugs of gasoline, so that's 25 gallons, is the maximum that you should have at your house.
Let's go back, Dr. Harow, to some of the issues people may have, perhaps a weakened immune system and the like, and they have what are the kind of precautions they can take? And now they feel like the clock's ticking. They've gone through the storm, it's after. What do you say then?
So for starters, they want to make sure that they've had the appropriate levels of medication. That goes with the preparation. Now you want to make sure that you have a mask. You want to have a supply, because you might be in a shelter surrounded by a lot of people with a weakened immune system. You are at risk. You want to have hand sanitizer. Also, there are things that you wouldn't think of that really are important in terms of strengthening your immune system. For example, getting good sleep. Your body makes cytokines, which are proteins which help the immune system. Eating well, good nutrition. You want to support the gut bacteria, because a significant portion of the immune system is focused in the gut. And it's super important to keep ahead of the issue, rather than running into a situation where you don't have what you need.
Well, I'll say it now, and I'll say it 20 more times on air and off. The advice you all are giving, so helpful, potentially life-saving, and can really help us all de-stress. Dr. Calderon, picking up the pieces though after a major storm, so very stressful. And what are some of the feelings people might experience, and what can they do to try to navigate that post-storm stress?
Mm-hmm. So I mentioned the initial period is a honeymoon period where there's relief and elation. I talked about that, and feeling high in gratitude. But that follows with a crash, with sadness, grief, anger, exhaustion, right? Inability to focus, what we call this disaster brain colloquially. Some people recover, they may have that in the recovery period, they may lapse into using drugs or alcohol again. And people with a history of mental health conditions, they may see an exacerbation, a flare-up of their symptoms. So three things, and Pete already mentioned them in what occurs in the shelter. I would say three things we need to do. One is to maintain a sense of control. So breaking the enormous tasks into manageable steps. Mm-hmm. Keeping perspective, so helping others, looking at the broader aspect of our lives. Besides the damage or lost property, spirituality comes handy here. And then looking for the supports. Find community supports, help others, and when necessary, seek professional help.
Doctor, thank you, Dr. Harow. That disaster distress, it can have real profound physical impacts for people. Talk a little more about that. Don't discount that, and don't assume, well, I'm just having a bad day. People need to pay a particular attention to that, and don't self-diagnose if you think something that started up here, understandably, is now affecting you physically. Talk about that disaster distress and how it can impact me physically.
Certainly, the anxiety can cause actual physical manifestations, and those are not just symptoms. Those can actually cause illness. Your anxiety can elevate your blood pressure. It can elevate your heart rate. That increases your oxygen demand and puts stress on the heart. Somebody who has underlying disease, that can actually precipitate a heart attack.
So just be aware. And after the storm, those resources are going to be able to surge. The emergency responders, the emergency rooms, the great work. In our remaining time, all of you have been so helpful. I'd like to ask very brief, 10, 15 seconds, much as we began, as you've listened and you've basically sat with people in their home during this program. Final piece of advice, 10 or 15 seconds each as we wrap it up. We'll begin with you, Pete.
Well, prepare. We started with prepare, which means get educated, means gain knowledge. We at the Red Cross, we have educational programs. All you have to do is go to redcross.org and you will find them there.
Peter, thank you so much. Dr. Harow.
You know, I had something to share, but just during this hour, I realized that I drive a Tesla. I have no idea where the manual release is for the door, and so that's the thing I'm going to check right after we finish this broadcast.
But you know, we chuckle a bit. Check, check, check. Don't assume. Get prepared now, so you're not worrying about it if a storm comes. Jeff.
Right, and it's all about the preparedness again. And now is the time to go out to the stores if you haven't been through a hurricane and get your supplies now. Your non-perishables, your batteries, your flashlights, because when a storm does get named and if it is coming this area, it becomes really chaotic out in the community. So now is the time to get those things, get your band, get it all organized.
In our brief time remaining, Dr. Calderon, final thoughts, sir.
Yeah, so we again prepare just like everybody else, and that to me includes that we need to establish the social network, right, of the people that we're going to help and they're going to help us, officially and unofficially.
Dr. Calderon, thank you so much. Dr. Berni, last word for you.
Yeah, I think we've heard a common theme: prepare. If I could give anything, it would be to prepare. Get your medications in order, make a medication list with your names of meds and doses, and just talk to your doctor or pharmacist if you have any questions so that you can be best prepared for the storm.
To all of our panelists, I cannot, and I know you share this sentiment with me at home, big thanks to our panel for their insight on this important topic. And I want to thank all of you for being with us, because we are really in it together as families, as a community. For our first responders, we can't thank them enough. We'd like to share the information about where you can call or text if you feel you need a little help. And for storm anxiety and distress issues, I'm Michael Williams. We'll see you next time.
Clear but steady.